So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to do a voiceover so we can do something professional. How does that sound? So these are the SimLab products that we've been waiting for. The SimLab XB1 Handbrake and the Push-Pull Rally Paddle Shifter. Now, first of all, I didn't do an unboxing on these units. I planned on it, but then I was like, you know what? Let's just get to the beans. Both of them, very, very nice packaging. Very well padded. The separation between the items was very substantial in a way that nothing's going to get damaged in shipping, and everything was pretty clearly laid out to where like you're not going to like lose any parts or pieces. Some things get stuck on the inside of the box, or the things are taped in weird spots and you don't see it and you throw it away. That's not going to happen with this kind of stuff. I also want to say that I let my dad try this out, and he said, and I quote, "This was the most intuitive shifter I've ever used." It was strange. I thought he was going to, use the push-pull shifter and just totally not get on board with it. I thought he was going to hate it. I thought he was going to have trouble remembering what's up and down, and he didn't have a problem with it at all. Because, typically, his paddle shifters at home on his rig, the left side is downshifts and the right side is upshifts. So I thought that was going to be confusing for him. It was not. He just immediately took control of it to the point where I was like, maybe you should have this. Maybe you should do the review on this. You love this thing. You're having absolutely no problem adapting to this. And I'll also say that I have some footage, not of the exact runs, but of the stage, or circuit rather. I play Richard Burns Rally Pro, mostly, on a stage or a circuit called Super Special Stage York. I got first place in Rally 3 in that category, and I got second place on the online leaderboards in Rally 1. And before I had fifth place, I think, in both of them. I was still kind of clunky with it. That was the first time I used it, so I hadn't really got to the point to where I was fully comfortable with it, but I did get to the point to where I did better than I did before with any other gear, so that's something, right? Let's go ahead and start off with a shifter. We're going to do pros and cons. The pros, it's high quality. It's very authentic feeling. It's satisfying to use. It feels good, it just feels like you're doing something, Very easy to actuate in both directions. It doesn't feel like it's too hard to push with the back of your fingers, and it doesn't feel too hard to pull with the front of your fingers. What is the front and back of your fingers? Think about that. Yeah. And you're still thinking about it, aren't you? I'd also like to mention that if you're injured or don't have use of one of your hands or arms, this would be a perfect solution to maintain control of your gears. The price, I think, is reasonable considering that this is a very unique piece of gear. I'm sure there's some DIY stuff, but where else can you go to buy a push-pull rally shifter? I think this type of shifter was only used on the Rally 1 cars. I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure I have not seen it on any other cars. So it's a very focused product. If you're into those types of cars, it's like the absolute best, perfect thing for you. I'm not saying it's not practical with other cars and other types of racing, because it is. Especially if you're into drifting or, things that require quick shifts within reach, and you don't want paddle shifters that are mounted to the steering wheel itself, because your wheel rotates. If you're drifting or you have 900 degrees of rotation or whatever, you're going to lose your paddle shifters, while you're turning. Sorry if I sound a little bit stuffed up, by the way. I have some allergies right now. Apologies. And hopefully apology accepted from all of you. Thank you very much. So yeah, both of these, by the way, before I continue, go for $219 US dollars. So the shifter, I don't know if I'd call it housing. I'd say frame or skeleton, maybe. Skeleton. Very easy to adjust. It's a robust system. There's multiple different attachments, different lengths of things to, shorten the setup or lengthen the setup or give you more options for curving around certain setups. Both of these things come with all the stuff you need to mount it and the tools that you need to adjust it. The large surface area of the carbon fiber paddle it's huge. It's almost comically large, but once you start using it, it becomes apparent why it is so large. I played with it on a TikTok stream a little while ago, and everyone's like, why do you only have one paddle shifter? And why is that paddle shifter so huge? It's strange to people because they're not familiar with it, but once they realize, okay, that surface area needs to be that large because your hand is moving and your paddle shifters aren't, for practicality reasons, it needs to be that large. It just feels like a very robust item. I feel like it'll be a lifetime purchase. I don't feel like there's any reason to ever need to maintain it. Everything's huge, and there's no springs. It's magnetic. So both directions, it's just a magnet pulling on it. Very cool, very robust. Oh, yeah. Now let's get into the cons of this shifter. I think the carbon fiber paddle could be a bit smoother along the edges. It's not, sharp. I would not call it sharp. It's not going to cut you, but it can be uncomfortable for long play sessions on the back of your fingers. Again, think about what the back of your hand is. It could be considered the front of your hand. It can also be a little bit awkward. If you're used to, traditional paddle shifters being left downshift, right upshift, it's going to be kind of weird transitioning over to one side. Of course, you can mount it on the left or the right or on the bottom of your wheel, on the top of the wheel, whatever is most comfortable to you. If you're like a truck driver and you only drive with your hand at the 12 o'clock position, you could put it up there if you want. Or, if you're a taxi driver and you have your hand at the very bottom of your wheel, you could mount it down there. There's no limitations as to where you can mount this little beast. Yes, it can be kind of awkward to get used to it, to break your muscle memory from other methods of shifting if you're coming from other methods. If you start off with this shifter, it's not going to be weird at all. It's going to be amazing. Very human, this product is. The last con that I could think of was it's using micro USB. One of my least favorite USB connections. It's very fragile. It's not a bad quality cable it comes with. Just the type of cable it is a big deal to me. Micro USB, I hate those cables. But you're not going to be unplugging and plugging this in all the time. It's not really a big deal. Just a really nitpicky thing. And it does come with a 90-degree cable, so it's a little bit more durable, I would say. Let's move on to the Handbrake, the XB1. This thing is actually named something unique. I thought it was funny. I looked at the website for the shifter, the push-pull shifter, and it's just called the push-pull shifter. I think it's called the rally-style push-pull shifter, something like that. It doesn't really have a name, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. That's what it is, and I think it's the only one on the market, so I don't think that it has to have a unique name. It is unique already. Yeah, so let's start off with the pros of the Handbrake, the XB1. It seems durable. When I took it out of the package, it was lighter than I expected. But again, it's mostly made out of aluminum, so that's to be expected. In general, aluminum is lighter than steel, right? It also comes with a ton of different items to adjust the pull, to adjust, how stiff it feels, how much preload there is. There's a ton of different options you can do to make this feel exactly like you want it to feel. And it's a very convincing pull, too. It's 150 kilograms, by the way, so it can handle some serious pulls by a grown man. The handle itself is very knurled, not to the point to where it's uncomfortable to someone with soft hands, but if you have a lot of sweat, sweaty hands, sweaty gland hands, you're going to be in luck here. You're not going to lose grip of this thing, especially with gloves on. It's going to grip up to gloves. It's going to grip up to skin. Even if you were like a fish person, you could grip this thing. Doesn't matter how wet your hands are or how slimy you are, you're going to be able to grip this handle. And it's large. It's beefy. It's everything you want in a handle. Yes, it is the best feeling Handbrake handle I have felt. It's not some weird ass shape. It's just a round cylindrical handle. That's what it should be, right? It's got appropriate knurling. It's appropriately sized. One of the biggest faults, I'm just giving you an example here, but my SimMagic Q1 and my SimMagic Q2, they both come with these little tiny handles that are made for children hands. So no matter what, when you go to grab it, you grab a handful of the shaft. Sometimes you want to just grab the head of the unit and do some head work. With this Handbrake, the XB1, you won't run into that problem. The handle is very large and it feels amazing, and you have plenty of hand real estate. And it's easy to disassemble. You don't have to have any tools at all to adjust the pull. Unscrew the preload adjustment screw. Pop this little collar off right here. Push the pin out with your fingers. You don't need a tool. Slide off the rubber stack and put on whatever combination you want in place of that. Simple. I wish more companies would make things user accessible like this. It's very important, especially for sim racing stuff. It's a pain when you got to adjust something with tools and take things apart left and right and test it out and be like, oh, I don't like that. Gonna have to switch it out. Of course, once you find the perfect combination or the perfect feel for your preferences, you pretty much leave it like that until something breaks, right? Or you need to maintain it or whatever. But it's still annoying for the initial setup, so you do not have to worry about that with this Handbrake. It is super simple, dead simple. I'm going to put this one in between pros and cons. I'm going to call this Limbo. Let's talk about the colors here. The colors are odd. I don't like the light blue, but it could be easily argued that the light blue helps it stand out from the rest of your gear. You're working with light blue and yellow. Two odd colors. I mean, yellow is kind of a sporty color, but light blue is not. But at the same time, it captures your eye. It captures your attention. It captures your imagination. You're like, what can I do with that? What all can I do with that thing right there? Yeah, you can pull it. That's what you can do with it. So now let's go on to the cons before we go to the final thoughts on these two pieces of gear. This sort of rally package, I'm going to call it. Cons. The micro USB returns for this piece of gear. I do not like micro USB. This one, in particular, is in a poor location, especially how I have it mounted. The USB cable connection is exposed, poking out. And I don't understand why they didn't just mount the circuitry further back or mount it to where the cable is coming out the front of the unit rather than the back towards the user. You know, I think that's asking for damage. It's asking for it to get caught on your clothes, or you get in your rig and you accidentally put your weight on that connection. I don't think it's a good spot for it. Watch out for that. And the last con, this one's kind of debatable. You know, it's priced kind of reasonably. There's other handbrakes that are similarly priced, but I think it's kind of on the upper end of what a handbrake should cost. Now, looks-wise, it does look appropriately priced, right? Like, you look at it, you're like, okay, a lot of thought has been put into the design, the repairability, adjustability, the form and function of it. You know, it feels good in the hand. You could look at it like you're paying for the concept of the handbrake rather than you're paying for the materials. Because if you look at the materials, there's really not that much there. It's a small unit, and I like that there's a small footprint, right? I would rather it be small so you can fit it in more spots. But it's just not really a whole lot of material for your money. Now, you could argue the same for the push-pull shifter, but because, from what I know, it's like the only one on the market, where else are you going to go for it? So, in that regard, it's a very reasonable price, because unless you make it yourself, there's nowhere else you can get that. And it's not a crazy price, and it's very high quality, and it's about in line with other paddle shifter prices, you know, standalone paddle shifters like from Fanatic and stuff like that. And it feels very high quality. It feels very convincing. It feels like it's straight out of a real $1 million car. So I'm not complaining about that. But, you know, obviously I always want things to be cheaper. That's, you know, I always root for the underdogs that are bringing cheaper things to the market. And I don't think that this company is trying to appeal to people that are looking for budget pieces of gear. I think they're trying to appeal to people that want something specific from their gear. Both these pieces of gear do indeed deliver that. They're both very professional feeling. They don't feel like they're going to break. And I feel like this company, you know, if you have any problems with them, I feel like this company would back you up. Final thoughts. I kind of already, you know, went across them a little bit, but we already kind of went on that path, that journey. I think both of these pieces of gear, the Handbrake, the XB1, and the push-pull rally shifter, are excellent. And, you know, especially if you're into rally or drift, I feel like either one of these pieces of gear, or both, would please any sim racer. I'm talking about, like, even snobs, right? You know, there's a lot of sim racing snobs out there that, oh, I only use SimuCube. Or, oh, I only use Husingfeld. Or, ew, you're using a replica steering wheel? And on that note, have a good day, you all. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.